Welcome to the Embarcadero Field Service Industry Template, which is a RAD server solution. In this demo video, we'll be covering the Field Service App Client, which is a RAD Studio FireMonkey-based client application for Android, iOS, macOS, and Windows. It's a single UI and single code base, and it utilizes the low-code LiveBindings to reduce the amount of code you have to write to deploy these solutions, to create and deploy these solutions. So let's look at how you can get the template if you don't have it yet. So if you go up to Tools and go to Get It Package Manager and you go to Industry Templates, you can download the industry template here in the IDE. Some other prerequisites. There's 4 projects, and the server project, I have already run the server project, and there's other videos that cover the server and the admin client and the setup. So this video only covers the field service app. Check out those other videos as well. And so I've got the RAD server development server here with the field service server running within it. And the other thing that we need in order to run this field service app client is we need the IB Lite client files. And so those files, I've already copied them to my debug directory, which is where my exe file on Windows is going to be running from. On the other devices, on Android, iOS, and macOS, you use the deployment tool. So I can go up here and show you that. So we go to deployment in the RAD Studio. And so this is for Windows. If you use PA Server, you can deploy those files here. And if we switch over to Android, you'll see here's the other IB Lite files that get deployed. That's the license file, and the other IB Lite files are here as well. And those get deployed, and you can add them using the Add Featured Files. You go here, and then you select the various platforms you'd like to deploy the featured files for. So you just deploy those, but they're already set up in the template, so you're good to go. You don't need to do anything else. You will need to copy those Windows files from the Interbase redistribution directory from your RAD Studio installation to your debug directory for the Windows, however. So we're ready to go here, and we're going to test out the app. I'm going to launch the app here. We're compiling it to Windows 32. And so it's already made its first request to RAD server. So I'm going to bring over the RAD server development server, and you can see here's the tenant's endpoint was hit by this client that I'm running here locally. So I'm going to log in as Technician1, and then I'm going to use a password of password. So it's logged in, and you can see I just received this notification on Windows. It uses the cross-platform notification system in RAD Studio, and so depending on the device, the notifications behave a little bit differently, but that's governed by this notification tab, which we'll talk about in a minute. So we've got various tabs here. We have the Appointments tab, and you can see the various appointments that we have. There's 3 here, the default data in the template. So we're going to click on this first appointment, and you can see the various details here for this appointment. And so you can enter, there's a notes field here at the bottom. You can enter a note, and then you can mark this appointment as completed. And when you do that, you can see the cloud icon comes up here, and that means there's data getting ready to be uploaded. All right, so the data has been uploaded to RAD server, and if we bring over the RAD server development server, you can see those endpoints were hit to download the data, and then there was a post made where that note was uploaded to the server. So if we go over to service history, you can see here was that appointment that I just completed, and you can click and view that appointment. You can also go over to parts, and this downloads the parts data from the RAD server Interbase database, and you can see the various parts in the field service app. On the profile, this is the technician that's logged into the current app, the current user, and then if we go over to notifications, these are the new appointments that we've received since the app was last run. So there's 2 new appointments, and if we go over here, there's 2 appointments. And then finally, if we go over to the data sync tab, these are the 3 pieces of data or tables that are synced up from the server. And then we can click refresh and re-download that data as needed. There's also a Team Multiview component here which slides out, and then it has an additional menu. Depending on the device it displays. And there's also a log out button on this menu. So we can click around via the multi-view. So that is the field service app at runtime. And so we're going to close that down and then navigate here in design time a little bit. So if we go to edit, we can hide these non-visual components for now, and so we're still at design time, but it looks much better without all those non-visual components sitting over our view. So just let's investigate how it's built a little bit. So we have a vert scroll box right here, which covers most of the form here. And inside that vert scroll box, we have a tab control. The tab control has a login tab and a menu tab. So you can see there's two little dots at the bottom of the screen. Those are only visible at design time. And so the first dot is the login tab. If I click on the second dot, it will give me the menu tab. And that allows me to click over at design time and edit the other tabs at design time. So we're going to click back to that first dot, and then each of these tabs contains a frame. So for example, this is the login frame, so I'll bring up the login frame. And here's the login frame, and this is where you would want to edit anything you wanted to edit on that. The login view is you'd be editing over here on the login frame. Any changes, make those changes here. So there's other frames, let's investigate those. So if we go to the appointments frame, this is kind of built the same way as the main form. We have the Appointments tab control. The Appointments tab control has two tabs. It has the List tab and the Appointment tab. On the List tab, we have a list view, and you can right-click on the list view, toggle design mode, and here's where you would edit the display how you would want it to look depending on what items you want displayed in the list view. So we've got a number of different displays, number of different items listed here, and then we can exit out of that toggle design mode, and we can toggle over to that second tab, and here's all the detail components that display all the details for an appointment. And so all of these detail fields are live binded. We're going to show these non-visual components here, are live binded to some memory tables and IB Lite. So we're going to see here, we're going to see these bind source DB components here, and these components are bind sources connected to the data module, and in the data module we have our query components from FireDAC, and we have our table components from FireDAC that connect to IB Lite. And then we're also going to view that. We're going to right click on this and we're going to do bind visually, and we're going to see the LiveBindings designer. And if we scroll down here, we will see all of the LiveBindings that's set up. So here's our list view, and we have all these fields in the list view that you saw already, and those are live binded to these fields in this FD query appointments TFD query. So they all say invalid because this TFD query connects to the IB Lite database, and the IB Lite database doesn't exist at design time. However, that we have the FD mem table appointments table that does exist at design time, and so you can switch that bind source DB appointments to the FD mem table, and then you would be able to change all those live bindings, and the schema is the same between those two FireDAC components. And so you can just switch it back and forth, change the live bindings, and it will be all valid while you're doing that at design time. And then at runtime, you want to be running the FD query that connects to IB Lite. Okay, moving on. So moving on to the other frames, the history frame is very similar. It has its tab control with its two different tabs. We have the parts frame. Now the parts frame doesn't have two different tabs because it doesn't have a detail view for the parts. We have the profile frame. Lists the profile. So these are all the fields, and this is all live binded as well, or some of it. We have the progress frame. Now the progress frame is an activity frame that we display over the top of the application when activity is going on. And so this is just a simple animation that's here, a T-float animation. The partial 1/4 circle spins around over the top of the other two circle components. So we have the queue frame, which is the data sync frame, and it downloads the data from those three tables on the server. And so now let's talk about the data module. So in the data module, that's where most of our other non-visual components are. That's where all our tables are. And so we have our EMS provider, which connects to the RAD server. We have our backend authentication component, our backend users component. We have our backend post component, which does our post to upload that note that we saw. And then we have our 3 Git components that get the different data from the server for those different parts, appointments, and technicians. We have our IB Lite driver, we have our IB Lite connection, and then we have our various IB Lite tables. There's a table for the notify and also the history. It keeps a history of which appointments you marked that haven't been uploaded to the server yet. And then we have our corresponding mem tables also for those various IB Lite tables. Also here we have our tenant list form. So at the login you can select different tenants or branch IDs, and this form gives you that list. And then we have our tenants data module, and this tenants data module, it downloads that list of data. It has its own EMS provider and endpoint for downloading that data from the RAD server. We also have a web browser form which displays a map that you can view the address on your mobile clients. And so that app uses the Google APIs, and so you need Google API keys in order to utilize those. And so you can enter those. This is the Quickstart guide for the field service app, and so you can enter those API keys, and there's the instructions in the Quickstart guide. So that Quickstart guide is in the main directory of the 4 projects of the field service industry template. So this is instructions how to get those API keys, and then you just go in here into the main form and the constant section up at the top, and you can enter those API keys. You can also change your EMS server and EMS port location. So if you do a live deployment or you have it on a different server than your development server, you can change those here and connect directly to the server that way. So that about covers it for this video. Be sure to check out the other videos where we demonstrate the Field Service Admin app, the Field Service Server, and the Field Service Setup app. And there's also another video where we demonstrate editing more of this UI, where you can customize the logo, you can customize the text here, all those kinds of things, and you can change the style. This uses a style book with the Emerald Dark style. Well, there's all kinds of other premium styles you can change the style to. So be sure to check out those other videos to find out more on how to customize your field service app client to suit your needs. And thanks for watching.